Hello, everybody. How are you doing? This is S. Anthony Thomas. This is the S. Anthony Thomas Show, and my guest this time is comedian, writer, and friend Joshua Q Livingston. And we're talking about his journey from comedian to movie reviewer to published author. And he has a very interesting story that his dad told him about his time in WW2. Yes, he's got an interesting story. And he also has some very, very interesting stories about himself. And we talk about comedy. Some of our friends. You will find this interesting. Do not miss this episode. You know what? Enough about me. You want to hear the show? Of course you do. Let's do it. There we go. Joshua Q Livingston, everybody. Old friend of mine. Glad to have you on the show. I'm glad you're here.
Me too. Man.
Just to give you an idea of why we're laughing, for those of you listening, as I stated, Joshua is an old friend of mine. We did comedy back in the 80s together. And what you don't know, listening audience, is that it's going to sound smooth to you, but we just went through a nice war with technology to and to even get on the air. So now we're finally here, and that's why we're laughing, because we know something that you did not. So Josh, do me a favor. One of the reasons I had you on here, other than the fact that I wanted to talk to you anyway, was you wrote a book, and I'm in the process of reading it. And I just want to talk to the audience very, very quickly. I'll be honest with you. It's good. I enjoyed it. And I defy you to start reading this book and put it down before you hit about 30 or 40 pages. You're not going to be able to do it. So I'm going to put the link in the description. So by the time you hear this, there'll be a link to the book. I would suggest you go get it. I'm enjoying it. And I'll be honest with you. I think, in fact, I'm pretty sure. In fact, I'm very sure you will too. Tell them what the name of the book is, Josh.
Okay, yes. The name of the book is The Rescue Cat's Guide to Bedtime Stories.
So you will see that link, and when we're done talking, go and check in the notes. There will be a link directly to the book, and I will suggest that you get it. But now, let's get to me talking to my old friend, my friend. Now, Josh, we've been stalking each other on Facebook for years.
Right. I've actually been on Facebook for 9 years.
Oh yeah, I got on Facebook in 2009. Yeah, and well, the thing about it is we both as comics from back in the day, you meet so many people that you literally you enjoy these people's company, you like them, you want to talk to them, but it's literally just not physically possible to have conversations and talk and spend as much time and connect with the people the way you'd like to. It's just physically not possible. But because of social media, we have the opportunity to, to check in and make sure everybody's okay. And it's like a postcard that follows you in your pocket.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Now I gotta know. Now I know of you now as a writer, but we initially met in the mid '80s, we met as comedians, and I just wanted to find out, because it's to me it's very, very interesting. We're creative people, and they refer to us as creatives, writers, comics, and people like that. And I don't know. I mean, I'm just really curious about what makes a person pick up the microphone for the first time. What made you decide this is something that you'd even want to try? Because it takes a lot of courage to get up on that stage.
Well, I'd like to answer that. A few things. I had severe stutter when I was a kid, as most people that did comedy who knew me back then knew that. But the irony part is that they thought I had a slight stammer off stage, but whenever I stuttered on stage, it was on purpose. I was doing, material about my problem. But I really didn't stutter. Anyway, the point is, if you have a severe stutter when you're a kid, excuse me, if you don't have courage, you don't talk. So I had
Mm.
that courage. I was a clown when I was a kid. I had sort of a not an enjoyable family life. I mean, we were affluent, but I wasn't terribly happy. So I always knew how to make people laugh, and I did things in high school. I did my own bits. I did my own comedy bits. So when I was 28 years old, it was almost natural. Then I also took a class at the Learning Annex as well.
Mm. That's an interesting thing because this is what I want to let the audience know. Um, when Josh and I started doing comedy in the mid '80s, at that particular time, the comedy boom was going on, and you know how how you see Starbucks everywhere right now. Well, multiply that by three, and that's how many comedy rooms existed, at least in the northeast quarter of the country at the time. So there was a lot of people that were interested in doing comedy, and it seemed like something fun to do, even though, like I said, it takes a lot of courage. And obviously, Joshua was telling about his talent and have the courage to do that. Now, when you got on the stage as a comedian, because there's a different thing, making your friends laugh and things of that nature. Maybe even annoying. Did you annoy your family with your jokes?
You mean when I was growing up?
Because I did.
Uh, well,
Yeah, because
well,
I did.
well, you mean? Well, see, I was on my own by that point anyway. I,
Uh,
I was already on my own, so I didn't have a problem with that.
no, I mean, when well, a lot of us who started doing comedy, you said in your late 20s, but a lot of us had the gene and that, um, or maybe writing jokes or doing sketches or doing some kind of comedy, something, even if it was just around the house
Oh
or
yeah,
amongst our
yeah,
friends.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. You know what? I'll tell you what. I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, and we weren't direct
Hmm.
with our feelings. So you use comedy to communicate. Like for instance, I learned how to mock people early on. Let's say you were in the bathroom for too long, and Dad would knock on the door. Okay, that's it. And then I would say, okay, that's it. And Dad would say, stop mocking me, and I would go, stop mocking me, and so that's kind of how it started. I didn't do jokes, but I would imitate people, or you would just have, it was a crazy family, and I had to laugh in order to keep from crying sometimes too.
Hmm. It's really weird. I mean, that's what I noticed that what happens with a lot of comics that I've met over the years. It's either uh, you have the funny parent or parents, or there's something else going on. Maybe it's not the most comfortable situation at home, and it's usually one of the two. And from obviously what you're saying, it wasn't as comfortable an upbringing as one would
But
hope.
actually,
Um,
I'm sorry for cutting you off. I realize this is your show, but I just want to get. I just want to. Sometimes I like to cut people off. I apologize for that, especially since I hate it when people cut me off. But you know what? My dad was naturally. I've known a lot of people in the comedy world that were hilarious. My dad was one of the funniest people I've ever known. And so not only did we have that crazy upbringing, but my dad was genuinely hilarious at times.
mhm.
Because he was a World War II vet. He probably had what they call now post traumatic stress. I think I said traumatic, but post traumatic stress syndrome. And so he was kind of half crazy, but he was a successful businessman. But he didn't tell jokes. He couldn't tell jokes to save his life. But he had a great sense of humor.
Well, you know what I've noticed about people. Same thing with like you said, he was a veteran. You see the same thing with firefighters, police officers, first responders. They see so many horrific things, life and death in front of them on a regular basis. Nurses, doctors, same thing. They deal with that so often that the humor comes up, like you were saying, as a shield or a buffer. And a lot of times though, they turn out to have pretty good sense of humor, mainly because to survive, they kind of have to.
Oh yeah, he told me now. Do you mind if I tell you? It's a story when he was in the Battle of the Bulge. He's been gone for a while, not for that long.
Sure.
It's kind of dark. Okay, so
No
so he
problem.
told me a story about one time when they were in the Battle of the Bulge, and the guy was the cook. He had some great K rations. They're going to make some pancakes. So there was no place to eat the pancakes. So they ate the pancakes on the bodies of, on the frozen bodies of German soldiers. And it's kind of sad now, but when he told me the story when I was like in high school,
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was hilarious.
Like I said, you see what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
exactly.
It's like the kind of things that we as people who don't have to go through those horrific circumstances, we would go, oh, that's horrible. But when you find yourself in a circumstance that is just horrendous, you get it. You create a gallows humor.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's you know what I think it is also. A lot of comedians are crazy, half
Mm-hmm.
crazy maybe, but a lot of them are. I think they have an innate decency, and I've learned this. I've learned I'm a cat person, as you know by my book, and sometimes people
Mm-hmm.
that who are truly funny people, they react to the world not the same way that other people react. Like I could be eating dinner, and here comes my cat. And she accidentally knocks it over a glass of water. Some people might get angry and actually hit the cat. I think it's hilarious. So I think it's a defense mechanism coming from the fact that you've had a lot of pain, but basically you've been able to remain a fairly decent person.
Well, you know what the funny thing about comics is and it's like even when you stop doing comedy and start doing something else, you've already built the machine and it's in your head and it's going to do what it does no matter what. And just like you were saying just a couple seconds ago when you were referring to your cat knocking over your water and some people would get upset, maybe even do something
Horrible.
that they shouldn't, like attack the
Right.
cat. But the thing is, comics, we're always our brains just kind of suck in
Right.
information. And I remember something bad happening to me. I remember something really bad happening that I can't say. And I was sitting there the whole time going, you may think you screwed me over, but you just gave me about 9 minutes of material.
That's great.
And I
That's
literally
funny.
remember I remember this is back. Yeah, this is back when we knew each other, and I remember I had just moved over from the comedy works to the comedy factory. Okay, I'll tell you what it was. A girlfriend cheated on me, and in like a really bad
Oh,
way, especially to a young guy who's I could because I was a lot younger than she was, and I was crushed. And then I went, well, I could be upset, but this is like 9 minutes of material. And I'm sitting there going, and I was like, oh my God, what the hell just happened to me? I said, that's when I was sitting there going, I'm not old. I was sitting there going, you know what? I'm 19 or 20, whatever. I think it was like 19. I went, you know what? I think I'm officially a comedian now because a normal person would be crying right now. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, this would be good stuff.
yeah.
And that's what happened to us. And that's what I said. That's what happened to your father regarding that. Because, like you said, you would never think of doing something like that. I would never think of doing something like that. But if you're out there in the field and you have no choice, and if there's just horrendous circumstances, you're going to do
And
what you
not
need to
only
do,
that,
even
but we're talking pancakes here. All right. I mean, it's hard to turn down pancakes, you know?
I'll be honest with you. Yes, I'll be honest with you. Yeah, I mean, we are talking pancakes here, man. And it is what it is. Now, now, as far as your mom, now see, I'm trying to figure out because a lot of times like some comics I talk to, both parents are hilarious, you know, and sometimes you have one person who's just a regular nice person, and then you have the showstopper over there. Now, was Mother funny
She
as well?
was, but in a different way. She was very caustic. She actually was a little crazy herself. She lost her dad when she was young, like 18 or 19, and I think she was not a happy person. I shouldn't say crazy, but I'm just saying. But you know what? She was a great audience. I think that's how they connected. You know, Dad was the comedian, and Mom was like the dream audience, right?
Mm-hmm. That is
No,
an
for
interesting
instance, I have an
yeah. I
interesting.
mean, that's the
I'm
soil you
sorry.
came.
I have an interesting story about that.
No, no, go ahead.
So I was in the.
Ah, good.
Can you hear me? Hello. All right. So I
Yes,
had an interesting.
yes, I can hear you.
What?
No, I
All
can hear
right.
you. Go ahead.
So uh, when I was a kid, I watched an Errol Flynn movie by myself at my parents' room. I guess they were doing something in the kitchen. Maybe Mom was trying to cook dinner. I don't know. And Dad was hanging out with her. So I watched a great Errol Flynn movie, one of those great swashbucklers called Captain Blood. And I came down. I said, "Have you ever seen a
Mm-hmm.
movie called Captain Blood?" And my dad says, "No, but I've seen Sergeant Liver." And Mom almost she fell into hysterical laughter. Well, I didn't think it was that funny. I thought it was kind of corny, but Mom thought it was the funniest thing she had ever heard. And so Dad, his best audience was Mom.
That's all. That's good. Did you? Do you? What about brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have two brothers. Well, we've had some things going on in the family. It's a good thing. I don't know if I'm going to let anyone know in the family about this. We've had some things going on. We've had some we've had some theft. We've had some weird things with finances since my dad died and my mom died. But when I was growing up, we were extremely lively, and sometimes we didn't get along, but sometimes we got along really well. You know.
Yeah, it's really weird because I don't know. Were they funny as well?
Sometimes I think I was the funniest, but it's funny. I have an older sister who's hard of hearing, and she and I used to
Mm-hmm.
have laughing contests. It was kind of our secret. No one else knew about it. It would be like I mean, sometimes it would only be once a year or maybe every 3 years. I think the last time was like when we were in our 20s, and she would just come to me and said, "Hey, do you feel like having a laughing contest?" So we go down in the kitchen and we have a laughing contest, and the first person to laugh lost.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It's that
and
that.
because she was hard of hearing, I learned how to do physical comedy. I learned how to do imitations, like facial expressions and things like that.
Mm-hmm. But if you think about, it, I mean, look at the soil you came from, though. You had the people, you had the jokes, you had the humor. Yeah, obviously you had all these other things going on, and it kind of, it changes who you are. It makes who you are, and then it changes who you are, obviously. And because I read the book, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit, but I'm going to stick with this for a little while. Just the comedy action. When you actually transition from what you were doing there to the classroom to the stand-up comedy, did it seem much different than you thought? And how did it go when you stepped on that stage at the Comedy
Well,
Works for the first time? And they said, "Okay, number 17,
I
Josh."
had taken a class with Tracy Skeen and Brian McKean at the Learning Annex, and they were great teachers
Mm-hmm.
because have you ever seen in the bad movies when they have a comedy class and they say how to be funny? Tracy and Brian, they didn't do that. Their their theory was if you came to this class, it means you already know how it is to be funny. So they just encourage you to structure an act and They encouraged you, they supported you, but they didn't tell you how to be funny. So I think the first couple of times I didn't do so good. I don't know if I ever. I mean, as you know, I didn't really have too much of a comedy career. I mean, I was mostly open mics. Occasionally, I'd be in a contest, that kind of thing. But in terms of the first time, I think I just had to keep on doing it.
Yeah, it's like the first year of comedy is basically it's like
Yeah.
hazing, you know, because you're learning how to do something in front of people while they're staring at you.
But the great thing is, I'm sorry, please.
And
No, I think
go ahead.
The great thing about it is there is that community. We started during the comedy boom, so there was a lot of promise. It was like going
Mhm.
to CBGBs in the late '70s, or wanting to be a rock musician in Liverpool in the early '60s. It was the right time and the right place. And so there was a lot of cool. I actually hung out with Gus for a while. I was there. You know how there used to be. You know how they had this clique. Oh, well, there were actually a lot of cliques, but there was one clique, and I don't want to go into that too much, But I actually, because I don't want you to get in trouble. But I actually hung out. I hung out with Paul, and I was like the first guy they were actually hanging out with, and then they created the clique, and I was not asked to be in the group. So, I was kind of like the Pete Best of comedy. I don't know if you get that joke or not, but you know what I'm saying? I
Yes, I
mean,
do.
no, we actually hung out, and I was like 10 years older than they were, and they were wild men. They would throw beer bottles up against the walls outside, all kinds of crazy stuff. And perhaps I just was not crazy. Maybe I wasn't that crazy. But but no, I mean, it was a very. I'm sorry.
Well, they did a remember they did a bit remember they did a
Oh
bit
yeah,
called Lapel
absolutely, I
Meet.
remember that. You know what?
you know, and
My favorite bit of theirs was a
mhm.
bit that they didn't like doing. Maybe it wasn't politically correct. It was the gay best friend. And they would invite some girl on stage, and they would ask her just to complain about her boyfriend. And then Rick, may God rest his soul, of
Mhm.
course, um, he he would do
Indeed,
the sort
yes.
of the gay stereotype, and he would say, "There, he wasn't good enough for you anyway. Here, have some tea." And
Mhm.
I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, they did a lot. They did a lot of interesting ideas back then. You were right. There were a lot of clicks, and I kind of floated back and forth because a lot of times with clicks, they tend to want you to kind of kind of be in that. And I was like, I'm not gonna just hang out with one group of people. You know what I mean? I just I was like, it's like guys, because I hung out with them a little bit and with all the other groups, and keep in mind,
Yeah.
I was 17 at the time. So I was like the baby brother to everybody. They just kind of dragged me along to different shows and things of that nature. And one of some of the people I used to hang out with, and I hung out with
Oh
Fred Novak
yeah.
and Jet
Oh
Raymond.
yeah.
You know,
Oh my.
and there's some stories there that I'm not
Well,
telling.
I
There's a bunch of
well, I have
stories
a
there that
great
I
story
never say,
about
but
what I
you know
was
what I'm
saying.
saying.
I went to LA. I understand you were actually in there for quite a while, right? Okay, so
Oh yeah, I spent
I
almost
was
the entire
there for a week
year.
in '95. And do you remember on Tuesdays they used to have the open mic
Mhm.
at the Laugh Factory? Okay, and then
Yes.
Jamie would give you a critique, but you had to wait all afternoon to sign up, and then you got signed up at 5 or 6 o'clock. So I was hanging out with Fred, and of course, I had known I wasn't friends the way you were, but I had known him. We actually, how if you remember, everyone hung out in Philly. You go into a diner, you'd hang out at the karaoke or however. But so I wasn't close with him, but he was there, and so we hung out all afternoon. And at some point, I was hungry, and I said, "I want to get something to eat." He said, "There's a convenience store down the street." I said, "Okay. By the way, would you mind buying me a beer?" And I said, "Freddie, you sure?" He said, "Don't worry about it. Just buy a sippy cup as well." So I bought him a cup, and I bought him a beer, and I got a sandwich and a drink for myself, a soda. And the whole day, he nursed his beer. And then we got signed up, and I went around the corner and had dinner with Jet. Yeah. I mean, it's not a hilarious story, but, I'm sorry about that.
No, well, the thing of no, I was just thinking about it because everybody, when I went out there in '93, the end of '93, and I know exactly what you're talking about regarding the Laugh Factory. For those listening, I don't know if it's still doing that, but what happened was people would line up like Josh said around the Laugh Factory, and you'd wait there till the evening, and it was a long day. I mean, it got to the point later on where people were showing up so early that literally you would have to get there at 6 o'clock in the morning. So you would literally be there from 6 o'clock in the morning until 6 p.m. outside, standing outside or sitting outside of this comedy club for the opportunity to get a number, for the opportunity to get on stage, to perform, and then have the owner, Jamie Masada, would, like all the people that did the open mic night, they would go upstairs, and Jamie would literally he would watch your act as you perform,
yes.
And then he would give you a critique of your act and make some suggestions and things of that nature. And I used to get a kick out of it because he had interesting ideas about what you should do with your show. He had some unique perspectives on what one should do.
Well, he actually told me he thought I should stutter on purpose. And I've been taking years to try to get rid of the stutter. I didn't mind talking about it because it was my pain, it was my experience, but there's no way I'm going to go up there and be Bobo the stuttering comic. And
yeah, because it all of a sudden.
Yeah, I had no interest in doing that. Because there were times that you know what? If you ever notice, there was one comedian. He had an open mic out in Bluebell, PA. And I went out there once, and I decided to do a goofy dance. And it actually got a lot of laughs. But the next time I came back, she said, "Hey, you're going to do that goofy dance?" And I felt like the disabled kid in third grade. I thought I'd do the goofy dance, and then they would follow me out to the parking lot and try to do things with me. So I was trying to make a joke there, but what I'm saying is, I think you got to stay away from that kind of thing.
Yeah. There's the problem there is that sometimes when you make like when you make fun of things, it's like if you're a heavy guy and you do heavy guy jokes, and there comes a point where if you do it too long or too much, it becomes all about that. And the whole idea about doing the jokes is for them to laugh at your ideas and to understand what you're doing, and you don't want it to be all about that because you'll try to do something different and like, yeah, do the stuttering thing, or yeah, do the heavy guy thing.
No.
And you don't want it to always be about that, because it gets where they go from laughing with you to laughing at you, and that is the worst. You don't want, you don't want that. Like it's a different
I used to
feeling,
do that when I was a kid.
No one wants that.
I was the class clown, but then sometimes I would cross over to negative attention. And I think there's a fine line between self-deprecating humor and losing your self-respect.
Exactly right. And you got to, and the whole idea is to either not go there or get off of that as quickly as possible. You know, because sometimes once it gets out of your control, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'll put it to you this way. As a comic, if you laugh and joke with people that you meet, say you work in an office and you laugh and joke all the time, what happens is like they basically, if you try to be serious or you need to be serious for something, they're waiting for the joke. And you're going, no, the building is on fire. No, it's not on fire.
That's good. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, honestly,
you know,
Bob from accounting just jumped out the window.
Oh, he brought a smoke machine.
Right? Yeah.
You're going too far with the smoke machine, man. Like, no, I'll wait outside. You hired your friends to dress up like the fire department.
Oh,
my
God. It's
calm
like,
down.
well, no, you're trying to say, listen, there's news cameras outside, okay? The place is burning down. Let's go. Okay. See
I don't believe you, bro. No.
Yeah, actually,
it was nice.
I'd probably ask for his car.
Can I take that with me?
I'm not going to ask for his chair. I'd probably ask for the car. Right?
Yeah, had your car keep Hey, look, if you've ever worked in an office, you find a good, comfortable chair. I'm telling you, you take the chair.
I actually have. I actually was a temp for a while, so I know what you're talking about. Been there, my friend, Joshua. Believe me, I have been there, and oh my goodness, that was horrible. Now what I want to do, I got it. We did the comedy thing, and now you've done Joshua the comic. Thank you.
Now it's time to Joshua the author. We got to move to the author. So now we move past comedy, and now all of us, because when I found you on Facebook, I knew that you were a writer, and I was like, okay, cool. But so how did you transition, or what made you transition? And how did you transition from the comedy?
All right. It's a long story. I'll try to keep it brief, but it was a process. You know how, like, when the arts is like a bad relationship. You do it as long as you can, but you realize the girl's always going to cheat on you, and then it's time to move on, right? So I did comedy. Like she might say I like you, exactly. And then she's got her other boyfriend, and other boyfriend in the other room. It's time to go. So in the late '90s, I realized comedy has gone as far as it was going to go. I was putting in too much and it wasn't giving back. So I did a series of things. I tried to be a web designer for a while. I've actually been a freelance writer since not long after I changed doing comedy, because the web designer stuff led to being online a lot, and then I got some jobs online. So actually I was a film critic for 9 years for a small paper in Philly. And then I wrote a screenplay. I got some people to read it, but it didn't go further than that. I wrote a play that got no interest. I've actually written articles for like the Chestnut Hill Local and things, like things about my life. Matter of fact, and I think you might have seen it, I did an article about being a stuttering comic. And I will be more than happy to send that to you later. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I'm a creative person, but I also know when it's time to leave the party. And so it's been an ongoing change for me. It's been an ongoing process. And I came to University City in 2006. And as you know, being in this area, West Philly has a lot of feral cats. So I started to feed the cats. I actually became the crazy cat guy. And I brought in 2 cats, and then I eventually started to write a novel. I said, it's time to write a novel. Just, I tried everything else. And to be honest with you, I never ever thought I could write a novel. And I said, I think I'll write a novel. So that's how it got to that point. Sure.
Okay, I want to back up just a little bit. Film critic.
2001 to 2009. I mean, if anyone knows my real name, it's not a big deal. I wrote for the South Philly Review. And it was a mixed experience because even though I love movies, if you know me in real life, like our old friend Fred, he loved movies. I'm like that. I love movies, always have. And it was a great experience, but it was not, you know what, film critics are not terribly nice people. And the people that run the PR companies are not terribly nice people, and they play favorites. And after a while, I just, I had been doing it for 8 years, and one time I complained about it to one of the people that work for the PR company. And then I got a call, actually an email from the head of the PR company, and we had a conversation. She said, you don't need to come to our screenings anymore. And they were an advertiser for our newspaper, and the newspaper actually took their side. And I did what I thought. I didn't lose my temper, but I decided to resign. I said, you know what, you know what they said? They said I could do movies, but I couldn't do movies from that PR company. That meant every now and then, if there was an independent PR company, I could do the movie, but they were the biggest game in town, almost the only game in town. So I just said, I think it's time for me to move on. And that indirectly led to me, that's when I tried to play. I wrote a play, and then eventually I started my novel.
Now, I want to find out. Now, the world is full of cat people and dog people. Now, are you a person that likes cats more and doesn't, or do you just prefer?
No, you know what happened? It just kind of happened to me. I'm a spiritual person. We don't have to go to that on your show because I don't know what your background is, and we're just talking. We're just having a nice conversation. But I believe things happen for a reason. And when I came to this area, I was never a cat person. My parents had a gorgeous little terrier mix. Her name was Doobie. Before that, our crazy family, dogs used to come to our family and they would get nervous breakdowns. And either they would get hit by a car or they would be taken to a family out in the country because we would drive our dogs crazy. But everyone was basically out of the house except for my kid's sister. And she got this great dog. Her name was Doobie, and she was just a gorgeous little sweet dog. So I'm not a dog or a cat person. But when I came to this neighborhood, one day I saw these 3 kittens, and I started to feed them, and that's where it started.
Now I want to find out because I'm in the process of finishing up the book. You talk about the cats, and obviously it's the name of the book is The Rescue Cat's Guide to Bedtime Stories. And you talk about your cats in the book. Obviously Simone and Neela will be the main cats in the book. But
yes,
Simone and Neela. Those names from
Simone, matter of fact.
Or did you create names?
Neela died last year. She died of cancer, and I hope that doesn't ruin the book for you. But sorry about that. But actually, Simone is here right now. She's lying about 5 inches away from me on my bed. Actually, as you know, my name is not Stephen Miller, and my name isn't even Joshua Livingston. And that's not a secret. That's Mark Twain's original name was not Mark Twain, as I think most people know that. But my point is that it just kind of happened. And by the way, how far are you now? Oh, wow. So I think then that the book is not just about cats. It's about a lot of things, right? Exactly.
Yeah, I know part 3 turns into you.
But not only that, the whole
It
book
turns
is
into your
sort of a
story.
metaphor
Yeah.
for my journey, but really the subtext of the book is we all need to talk to each other. We need to tell each other our stories. That's why I call it the Rescue Cat's Guide to Bedtime Stories. Because it's really, and now we're going through a time in our history of the world where people aren't talking to each other, and I think they got to start talking to each other. And that's the theme of the book, that we need to get back to, the way they used to do thousands of years ago. They used to sit around the campfire, and they would have s'mores, and they would have uh, mastodon barbecue. I think usually they have the barbecue first, and then they would have the s'mores. By the way, I am trying to do some shtick here, but anyway, the point of the story is we need to go back. I know I'm starting to sound like Johnny Carson after a bad joke, but hey, I think it's time to fire some writers, right? But hey Ed.
How much did you guys pay to get in?
I tell you what, I will supply you the line, and if you want to do it in your Johnny voice, well, whatever it was too much, right? But anyway, what I'm saying, I think we need. Thank you. What I'm saying is that I think we need to get back to that. We need to get back to telling each other our stories. And that's really, and it's all the theme. It's the theme about a guy. It's about a guy that it's me. It's about a guy. He never felt love. Maybe not romantic love, but he never felt love, and he finally finds love as a middle-aged man from two little animals. And I know it's not the same as having a girlfriend. And I know some people out there are probably laughing. No, it's not the same as having a girlfriend, idiot. But the point of the story is that it's also about me. It's about how I finally found love as a middle-aged man, and it kind of changed me. And it also made me less selfish.
Mm-hmm. That's what happens when you have someone or something to care for. It takes all of the, when you have responsibility for someone or something, it does change who you are, whether it's a child, whether it's a pet. When you love something else and it's not all about you or me, and it becomes about someone else, it does change who you are immediately. It's the same thing as if you adopt a kid, or if you have children in your family that you love and that you see all the time. All of a sudden, when you start directing some of that energy towards someone else, it kind of opens you up. And when you have the cats, you had the two, and
yeah, absolutely.
Because you said they were feral cats.
Oh yeah.
That's how you got them. Okay, because I know in my uncle's neighborhood, there were a lot of cats around. I mean, they would be having these kittens, and what started to happen was people started to literally, they knew the cats were on the block, so everybody that knew the area would drive methodically, slowly down the block because they knew kittens were there. And then when they realized no one had claimed the kittens, it was just a couple of cats that had all of a sudden everybody in the block around there was like, well, nobody's claiming these cats, I guess I have a cat now. And they all started to take the cat. They all started to take the cats in, and people were putting food on the porch, and I would go visit my uncle. I'd sit on the porch and I'd have cats in my lap, and I'm going, I'm kind of liking this a little bit, So I know how cats.
I can tell you a story. When I brought Simone in, I'd already been, and I think the story is actually in the book of how I brought her in. But I was already feeding cats, and people would say, "Are you going to take them in?" And I wasn't ready for it. And there was a big. Remember in 2009 we had all those snowstorms, like 5 in a row. Like we hadn't had any snow for like 3 or 4 years, and we got
Yes.
slammed that whole time. That like 4 or 5 blizzards. And so the first one, December 18th, and I will always remember that date because it changed my
Mhm.
life. December 18th, and I had already been feeding the cats for like 3 years, right? And December 18th, as you probably know this. Feral cats are very
Mhm.
smart, and when there's bad weather, they usually find places to hide. Simone was hanging out on my stoop, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I was
Mhm.
seeing, here comes the snow, and she's getting covered. And I said, if I don't take her in, if I take her in, I could get in trouble because my landlord might give me a hard time. But if I don't, I'll come out and there's a frozen cat. So I decided to take her in, and that changed my life.
Mhm. Mhm. It's weird because it's like I get that because I'll be honest with you, I don't have any pets, but there was a cat that was on my porch, and it was like really cold outside, and I was very close. I wasn't going to keep the cat, but I was going to accidentally let the cat in the house. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? And then accidentally leave some food down because I was like, I can't let And but what happened was, turned out to be my neighbor had a house cat that got out, and she was looking for her, and she couldn't find her. But she never said anything. She just kind of looked around, and
Oh, jeez.
I know she was kind of upset, but I think she probably just thought the cat got hit by a truck or something bad happened to the cat. And I said, "This is cat that's on my porch all the time." She goes, "What is the cat? Is it a girl?" I said, "Yeah, it's a girl." She goes, "And what does the cat look like?" And I described. She goes, "Oh my God, that's my cat." I said, "Well, I know where your cat is right now." She goes, "Where?" She goes, "All right, look, see that Toyota Camry right there? Yeah, you're pointing to your car." I said, "Yes, I'm pointing to my car. Look under my car."
Mm.
And the cat was under there because it was warm under there. It wouldn't because I couldn't get the cat in the house, um, but it was warm under the car. So I was it got to the point where every day I would walk outside, I would literally
Right,
get into
right.
the push up position and look under my car just to make sure that the cat wasn't under there. And then finally she goes and she grabs the cat and takes the cat in the house. And I never saw
Right.
well, I wouldn't say I never saw the cat again. I see the cat all the time in the window, but that was the first time the cat got outside because she's normally very, very good. Because if you have a cat that's used
No,
to
no,
being
no.
in the house, they really don't need to be running around outside. You know, they don't know what to do. It's like a dog that's never been out of the house. Cars are completely foreign to them. They don't even know to avoid them. So you never know what the situation is. Now you had now with the cats that you had when you had them, and you had them for a long time.
I'd
Unfortunately,
say
you lost
about eight.
Mila, as you said. How old was she? Mm.
Yeah, that's about middle
That's
age to
a
late.
cat that's
That's in
late middle age,
between being
correct?
what they call a young cat and like a middle age. It's not quite an old cat, but I'd say it's up there. Simone's about 11 now.
And how about Simone? Mm, okay. So now this is something I don't want to be insensitive when I say this because a lot of times, um, and it's not a bad thing. It's just that you never know because I know people that I couldn't personally do this, but like if I lost
Yeah.
a pet, I can't just go, well, got to get another one. I can't do that. I know people that they have a dog for a long time, and they genuinely love the dog. I mean they even they watch the videos of the dog every once in a while, and they have the pictures and stuff. But that the second that dog was gone, they mourned him for a little while, and I'm talking the next puppy was right back into the house. And I'm going, I didn't say anything to them, but I remember going over to hang out, and I'm looking around, I'm going, and I saw the puppy, and I was like, you know, uh,
Yeah.
it's been like 2 weeks, you know. I'm like, I walked into the house bummed out because when I would walk in, the dog, because that was my friend, so obviously I was all over there all the time. You know
Right.
how dogs,
Right.
once they know you and like you, you're part of the pack, even if you don't live in the house. Um, and But my cousin had a cat. I used to call him Crazy Cat. They got the cat because they had mice. And they wanted to get rid of the cat because somebody was cutting the yard across them, and the mice and the cat. And the cat was just there. It was like, oh, hey, cat, here's some food. I played with the cat. So when I walked in the house, you could literally hear Crazy Cat. You could hear the little paws. He would literally jump off the middle of the steps over the banister, and I would hold my hands out like I was holding a cake.
Oh, cool.
And he would jump off the steps into my hands and then jump on my shoulder. And they're like, that damn cat likes you more than they like us. I said, because you don't pet the cat. That's why it's a pet. You're supposed to hug the cat and play with the cat and rub the cat, like you care about them or like them. Why would you have a cat in the house and just like, okay, you got a job to do, cat, just kill something, and there it is. I can't do that. But what I wanted to know about after that long rant I just went on, do you think that you will bring in, because you're used to having more than one cat?
I don't think so. I'm having problems with my landlord too now.
You will bring in another?
And I don't want to be that guy with the two cats. I mean, it was great when I had two cats, and also, you know what? I think Simone likes being an only cat, to be honest with you. She likes the attention. And I think Neela, she was wonderful, but I think she was kind of a hog for attention. And when she saw I was paying too much attention to Simone, she came up and had to get attention. So I'm okay with it now.
By the way, to those of you listening, what he's describing about the cats having a little bit of problems with each other, having a sibling rivalry,
yes, it does.
That exists in the book as well. And I would just put it to you this way: it's very, very interesting, and that's what I said. If you, what I will say to this is, I'm in the process of reading the book. I enjoy the book, and the first time I read the first, I think, 40 pages in the first sitting, because there's a lot of things going on that I have to read big chunks of it, and then I'll have to take care of some other business I have to take care of. Then I'll come back and read another chunk. That's why I didn't get a chance to finish it. But if you get an opportunity to read the book, and I hope you do, I defy you. Yeah, I'm challenged. You go get this book. I bet you don't stop for at least 25 pages. I bet Appreciate you don't. I wanted to ask you this. I got. Oh, no problem. Just telling the truth, brother. Just telling the truth. I said I want to ask you about this. This is something I was curious about. And obviously you can't say but so much. Yeah. It's a nice chunk in the first quarter of the book, and I don't want to ruin it for people.
Right.
The Dream World story battle. Okay. Now I don't want to get into specifics, because if you say too much, all right, it will you can't say too much there. And I don't want to go any further than that. I'll just say, when you get the book, when you see the Dream World story battle section come up, get your popcorn
ready. Thanks for that as well, by the way. I appreciate that.
Okay. Now, when you did this, oh, no problem, my brother. No problem, my brother. Because I just got a kick out of it, in the section with the chess and those kind of things. And then at the end of the book, like we said earlier in this particular podcast, that's when we go into more detail about Joshua's life and things of that nature. So that's the part that's part 3 of the book near the end. When you were writing this, now keep in mind, this is basically, you'll get this reference, because I think this is basically kind of, was kind of at the end it became kind of your Purple Rain. This book is your Purple Rain. And when you were putting this stuff on the book, when you were writing this down, and I mean, keep in mind, you're really diving into some real stuff here. You know what I mean? So what's going? Do you feel uncomfortable because now you're telling people a whole lot of things that may or may not come up in regular conversation, and it's apparent when you're reading it that you're telling things. Obviously, you're embellishing some things for humor, and I'm pretty sure that there was no dream world battle, or was there?
That's funny. That's funny. Oh my god. I'm actually laughing at that now. It's actually very good.
But go ahead. So when you're pouring things out, I'll speak for myself just to give you what I'm talking about. Um, I have another podcast, and I tend in the beginning of that podcast, I would talk about things that actually happened to me that were kind of personal. And at the time, nobody was listening. So then all of a sudden, people started listening, and I'm going, Jesus, boy, because it was obvious that I was talking about myself, even though I had changed things. You did this, and obviously I know you, but I didn't know some of these things. But you put them down, and you wrote them for the world to see.
Well, believe me, there's some things that don't go in there.
Writing this down,
like the time I had sex with all the Lakers cheerleaders. I didn't think I needed to put that in there. But sorry.
Those can't believe
anyway.
Was wrong when I called her when they
answered the damn phone. I'm just trying to be playful. Sick, you know what? Here's how. Wait a minute. Okay, so here's my answer to that. If you notice, and I didn't do this on purpose, I guess any creative person, there's an inner need that's beyond just entertainment. I think I had a need to get these things out. And as the book came along, I realized that's how it evolves. Sometimes the book talks to you. The characters talk to you. Mm-hmm. And if you notice, at the end of the book, the girls tell Stephen, we like your personal stories better. And I think, so the book is about my evolution, how I realized that as I'm writing the book, I need to talk about myself because these are things that need to get out. And to be honest with you, my problems with my brother in the book, he's actually gotten worse. He's a very sophisticated guy outside, but inside he's kind of an evil SOB. And again, if anyone in my family, it's one of the reasons, two reasons I use the name, because there was a story when I was a kid, I think it's in the book sort of, when my mom asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up, I said I wanted to be a writer. And she said, well, what's your pen name? And I said, my pen name's Joshua Livingston. So that was when I was 5 years old. So when my mom had Alzheimer's, I thought it would be a cool thing to write the book under that name. But then I realized I could have problems with my family. So that's the other reason I decided to go under that name. But my point is, as I'm writing the book, as I'm getting to the end of it, I said, you know what? These things have to be told because that's how I feel. And I think it adds to the book. It makes the book
I get it.
More three-dimensional. Right?
Yeah. I mean, see, the thing is, people connect with artists. If you see the artists that people connect with the most, you can see the through line. You can see bits and pieces of them in the art. And the more they put into the art, the more transparent or three-dimensional, as you say, that the work becomes, the more they can relate to it. And it just kind of sticks to them. They just, they'll read to the book, or they'll go back and they'll listen to the music, or they'll go back and watch the movie, or they'll listen to the this, or they'll read the that. And, that's because, like I said, as soon as when I read, I was like, yeah, he's telling on himself. He's telling his story. And I think that when people get an opportunity to check it out, they'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Now, before we go, The next book.
I'm going to try to tell it short, but I had a little windfall last year, and I bought a lot of typewriters. I have a little collection of manual typewriters. Actually, I have about 18 in a small studio apartment. And well, but anyway, last year when Neela died, I had a lot of feelings about it, and I started to write a book. I actually wrote a book about speech camp first, but I didn't like it. I didn't write the whole book, but I got started, and I realized I had to go back to something more personal. So the book, and I'll just give you a short description, I'm actually done with the first draft. I wrote the first draft on a typewriter. I'm transcribing it into my laptop. It's called Neela's Bucket List. And in the book, she finds out she has cancer. And instead of going for treatment, which is not 100% guaranteed, which, by the way, would turn out to be the way in real life, she wants to travel around the world and fulfill her bucket list. So that's what the book is about. You know, I'm really trying to make a push to be a lot more successful now to market this one, try to complete the second one. I have a PR person that's helping me, free of charge. Actually, I don't want to mention his name; I'll get in trouble. But he's out on the West Coast, and he has agreed to help me. So I'm trying to make a push. So I don't really know what's going to happen, but I'm sure when I sit down and write my third book, and that'll be a ways because I still have some work to do on the second book. But you know, a lot of it depends on what's going on with the world and what's going on with me.
All right, folks, I want to thank you very, very much for stopping by and stopping back. Much love to you all. I will see you again next time. Take care.